Hello out there, everyone. Hi. Welcome to the Musical QuaranStream with Glen and Bree. I am Glen.
I'm cute.
Yes, she's very cute.
I'm Bree.
And some would say that she is the cutest.
Hey.
Well, and the way that the show works is twice a week we show up and we say, hey guys, here's what we've been watching and here's what we've been thinking about theater. And then one of us pitches a show.
Yep, we started this back in March. If you've been sticking around with us, we appreciate it. If you found this on YouTube and are catching up with us, we appreciate it. Or if this is your very first time on our channel, we appreciate it.
Yes.
We started doing this twice a week because we were stuck in quarantine and we wanted to make sure that we had something fun to do and we were providing entertainment back at a time that a lot of entertainment was being shut down. Now things are kind of reopening. I'll be honest, it's been a little bit harder since we've been going back to work, but we still really enjoy doing this stream. So we've kept on keeping on, and now we are on classic TV.
Yes, we just wrapped up doing classic literature. We did the books that everybody knows and loves, or the books that everyone should know and love. And we were like, what follows on classical literature for adaptation to the stage? And of course, classical TV came to mind. And hello, Bristol. Nice to see you guys in the chat. So,
There's Lola.
Hey, Lola is in the show.
Yeah, if you don't know Lola, she's our cat.
Yes.
She sometimes joins us and expresses her opinions, more so on not being pet and the center of attention, more so than musicals.
Yes. She doesn't have that many thoughts about musical theater in particular, except that more shows should involve fluffy kittens.
Yep, that's it.
So, let's see, what have we been looking at this week that we should tell people about?
I mean, to be honest, not a lot. We've been moving since about May, very slow going as we keep kind of waiting to have a little bit of money and putting some things together, or my parents have shipped us this bedroom set, so we finally were able to put clothes in drawers. So we were trying to find stuff that we could just kind of like have on the background. So like, you know, we've been rewatching Legend of Korra and Mysteries Incorporated, stuff we really don't have to kind of pay attention to in order to get some work done. And then the bed is very comfortable, so I've been going to bed quite early. But I don't think there's been anything new since this weekend.
No, I don't think so. One thing that I did want to point out, though, is that once upon a time, way back toward the beginning of the QuaranStream, there was a live theater event where we were like, oh, this is coming on right after us, you know, so you could leave our show and go watch this show after we're done. That was a live Zoom reading of the play Hate Mail, starring Rhea Seehorn and Paul F. Tompkins. And for those of you who don't know the show Hate Mail is a play written by Bill Corbett of Riff Tracks and Mystery Science Theater fame, and Kira Obolinski, that is a parody of A.R. Gurney's Love Letters. So it's a man and a woman who write to each other, and the play takes place as their letters going back and forth. And Hate Mail was written as the play for people who hate love letters. And the reason I bring it up is because I just found out that for just one more week, you can go to Vimeo, Vimeo.com, one of YouTube's big competitors, and you can pay $3 and you can watch the archived Zoom reading of Hate Mail. And the money goes to help areas that have been the hardest hit by the coronavirus to get the medical equipment and assistance that they need.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is nice to see online theater continuing to participate in trying to help out with these things.
Yeah, it always seems to be something else. I know we've all been seeing the really scary pictures coming out of California and Oregon, and that is very, very frightening. And we have some friends who live in LA, and we hope that they're doing well.
And wherever you are, stay safe, whether it's paying close attention to see if there's an evacuation for a fire or a storm, or just, social distancing, wearing your mask. It's kind of scary out there right now, but it is survivable. We can get through this. Yeah.
Well, on a positive note, I've almost graduated from therapy.
Hey.
Which you never really finish. It's always like work that you have to keep doing. But, yeah, I highly, highly recommend it. I am going to kind of keep pounding that drum and trying to say, like, hey, if you're having a hard time, and I know it is really scary, and it's really hard to kind of like comparison consumer shop with therapists, but I found that it helped me out a lot, and I took 2 weeks off and then checked back in with my therapist, and so now I'm doing so well I can take a month off, and I really learned a lot and kind of view the world differently, which I thought was really kind of nice to have that help throughout the pandemic. I feel like I can admit to myself, like, I have been resilient my whole life, but sometimes when things kind of come at you all at once, being able to have a neutral third party is really helpful.
Yeah.
Not put it all on somebody's shoulders, just because they live with you.
So that is wonderful news. That Bree's therapy is going well.
Yay. I'm almost an integrated person.
Yes. It's always good.
Yes.
Although being an integrated person sounds like a term you would find in 1950s science fiction.
Yes.
Yeah, so I watched a movie earlier today called, I think it was called The Birth of the Humanoids or something like that, which was a 1950s era movie that was all about the creation of human-like androids. And was it a great movie? No, it was very talky. It was basically a movie made out of 5 very long dialogue scenes. But there was, thinking about, integration sounds a little bit science fiction-y. There was a thing where if you are a human being and you fall in love with an android, instead of getting a wedding with the android, you can apply for what they call rapport. And rapport is basically they take a little bit of your personality and imprint it on the robot so that you two become instantly in sync with each other. So, and you said, I'm almost an integrated person, and I know that's a therapy term, but my brain instantly went to, ooh, that'd be a really interesting science fiction thing, the integrated person. Yeah.
Yep.
Not to take therapy lightly. It's a very serious issue, and everybody should be looking into it. Even if you don't think you need therapy, you should look into it. It's worth it to have someone to talk to about things in your life and maybe figure out things that you didn't know going in.
Yeah, I feel like it's just really given me a different way to look at the world. Like, I feel like I already felt like I was kind and empathetic, and I think that I realized a lot of that kind of goes both ways. It's kind of not only feeling, doing kind of a deep dive into yourself, but also kind of like what do you view as important in society and your place in society, and, kind of how are you going to muddle through when you don't have support, which I think is really helpful. One of the things that my therapist said to me that was really helpful, which, we're a musical theater podcast, so we're going to talk about it a little bit. He's like, the things that you think you're really good at, which is like connecting with people and storytelling and being creative, like that's not things that are really viewed as positive in your society. We view strengths in capitalism and being aggressive and, being cold and unfeeling sometimes. Like, you want to say, I'm all business, right? I can leave personal stuff at home. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the gifts that I have to give to others or to give to society are bad or wrong for not being valued, but what am I willing to do to say they're still important to me and to kind of live a valued life like that, and if I don't feel that's important, what am I okay giving up? And I think for me, like, once I kind of, like, I'm not going to say money's not important. We all know money's important. We all know we need money. But I think once I realized, like, I can just do things because I like it, and it doesn't have to make money, that was really nice. That I can just enjoy who I am and not have to worry about being perfect. That I can figure out ways to enact good in society, a way that I want to, and kind of be okay with not having a lot of support for that. So I think that was, like, really hard because we've gone through a lot of, like, really tough moves and job switches and really being kind of, I think both of us devalued, but I was really feeling it quite hard during the furlough, and so kind of having somebody there that's, like, able to kind of pick me up and dust me off and help me kind of come to my own conclusions. Like, I said, if I lost my job tomorrow, I'd be really sad because I like it and I love the people I work with and I think I'm doing important work, but I have more confidence that I could find another job. Yeah. I have more confidence that the skills that I have to offer are unique and beneficial and that I have done important things in my life and I can continue to do those things, whereas I feel like more at the beginning of the pandemic, I was feeling a little lost and a little hopeless and like nothing I do matters. And so that's hard to put on a loved one, especially a loved one who, sees you as pretty infallible and thinks you're pretty great already. And I mean, it's not only Glen, but like, my parents. So having kind of a third person kind of question my assumptions was really helpful. Knowing that they don't really have any skin in the game, like, sure, they're personable and they don't have to enjoy talking to me. They don't have to dislike talking to me. Like, they're getting paid either way. So just kind of having somebody there to give me a little bit more tools and to give me a little bit more perspective. I kind of said, like, I don't think I can go back in my past and see, like, the negative things as positive. But I can see more neutral things that I used to see as very negative, which was really helpful as well. So.
Yeah. And in case any of you are out there wondering, like, well, where was Glen during this time that she needed someone to pick her up and dust her off and tell her that she was wonderful? That's part of the thing about a third party that is very useful, is that when I say something emotionally that will hit someone who loves me and I love them, differently than if a third party says it. So when I try to pick someone I love up and dust them off and be like, hey, everything is going to be all right, that can come across as, well, yeah, but you're biased toward me.
Yes. Yeah. Not necessarily condescending, but it's like they already care a lot about you.
Right.
So sometimes it feels like, well, of course they want me to succeed. They're on my side already.
Yeah, so having a third party who genuinely has, like, no investment in your life, being able to listen to you and say, hey, you sound very talented, you sound like a good person, you sound like a fun and talented person, and this over here does not define you, this does not define your worth, that sort of thing, is very important.
Well, and like another like really clear metric, because you know me, I love my data. We talked about how very in the beginning of the pandemic, I was having a hard time sleeping. And we literally went through the past 4 months on my phone, and I went from 4.5 hours to 5.5 hours to 6 hours to 7 hours of sleep time. And we're like, so like it really helped. It really did. So.
Yeah, mental health is such an important thing. And you would never know it because so many insurance programs and things like that don't want to cover it, don't want to treat it as essential. But it's a very important part of taking care of the whole person.
And one of the things I was thinking about today in my session was, I did take some half days to kind of process a lot of times when I went through therapy every week. But it was still less time than I think if I would have quit my job because I felt overwhelmed. I think it was still less time than if I took a vacation, if I took 2 weeks off. So really, like, I was missing some work, but my work was luckily flexible enough and work from home enough that as long as I finished my work, it was okay. And I realized not everybody's in that situation, but I just thought, how even if you value capitalism, having a center, having an institutional therapist was really beneficial because I could do it for an hour at work. If I needed to take some time off, I could take a couple hours here or there, and I didn't really lose a whole lot of productivity.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I felt like that was really kind of an interesting experience. I think a lot of people feel like, well, if I have somebody who needs therapy, they're going to be a liability for my company, and I think that this actually kind of like not only saved me, but like saved my job.
Yeah, and you know, in terms of like, didn't lose much productivity, arguably your productivity got better because you stopped having so many concerns during the day.
And I, one of the big things is I was really anxious and fearful of other people, which of course during the pandemic makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like I really like today, like really enjoyed talking with other people. Like I hate doing emails, I hate doing phone calls. And today I was like, I felt really good after a phone call. So. Yeah. You know, I just thought that was a really positive experience, and since I didn't have a show to really talk about, I figured I would at least say, if you're thinking about therapy, I would definitely give it a try. If your therapist doesn't seem to gel with you, I would definitely sooner rather than later try to find another one or see if they can recommend somebody. And I know it's hard, especially if you have to work with a network, but highly recommend.
Yeah. So recommendations: go to therapy. Rent Hate Mail on Vimeo. And let's see. Oh, Pushing Up Roses on YouTube. Very fun person. Does Murder, She Wrote videos and covers old video games and things like that. Very fun person to watch. And I can't remember if we discussed this in depth on the show before or not. But I think it's a very interesting trend that a lot of the play publishers who handle the rights for these plays and everything have started actually publishing new editions of some of their plays and everything that can specifically be licensed for Zoom performance. And I think that's fascinating, and I think that's very smart to work with that, not just in terms of we don't know how long this current pandemic will last, but it's going to open a door for like distance productions, being able to, you know, you graduated college 5-6 years ago and all your friends scattered, but hey, maybe you guys want to put on like a production of Xanadont or something.
Yeah. I always think the hard thing is when you are a part of a school, sometimes you can't have educational prices, so I think proving that would be really challenging. Yeah. Granted, I have not bought a Zoom copy, so if you have, please tweet at us, let us know, write in the comments. But I think like that would be one of the things like I think you would have to consider, because I remember doing school plays and school productions, and sometimes it's like $100 or so discount. So I don't know if it's going to be like all discounted or, you know, it's, I think it's kind of the same problem with like having movies sent straight to our house at this point. Right. Where it's like, I think it's a wonderful solution. I mean, like a solution is better than nothing. Like I'm not trying to be devil's advocate, although I kind of am at this point. But I feel like that's the one thing is like if there can be a certain amount of flexibility, because every performance isn't necessarily going to be, you know, that brick and mortar performance. I think like having a reading cost, having kind of like, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I am saying it's like I feel like there should be some more nuanced pricing here, because I think that doing a reading amongst friends for awareness or for charity, there's certainly ways to kind of go about that. Also doing a staged reading or doing a full performance, and I think that kind of solving that where there are certain plays that you can definitely do full performances on Zoom, you know, not so much with like maybe sets, but definitely costumes and props. Others really can't be experienced in the same type of way. So I hope that whoever kind of designed the system gave it some care and gave it some thought and had kind of like a stair-step tier system. Yes.
So, but that's a very interesting thing, and hopefully that's a thing that we're going to see more like developed, more fleshed out, and we're going to see, you know, we'll have to look into it and see, like, do they have different tiers of royalties and things like that for it? Yeah. And I've also seen people talking about some certain scripts are now being rewritten for college and high school productions where the campus may be open and students may be back, but the production is being retooled so that it can be performed socially distant, so that it doesn't require characters to stand right next to each other, that sort of thing. Which is very interesting given the large number of titles I've seen listed for that kind of production that are romances.
Well, I suppose instead of surreptitiously slipping a note, it's like, I will leave it under this rock. And then go stand 6 feet away, and then
Yes.
you can secretly pick up the love rock.
Yes, but how do you do the socially distanced, at last we are able to kiss?
You don't. That ain't happening.
If you've seen one of these scripts, if you're in one of these productions, tweet at us, leave us a comment on YouTube, let us know how it works.
Are they housing you like the NBA in a Disney pod?
Ah, that might be the thing. You know what?
Pod living, baby.
Yeah. All right. But anyway, so that's
like a dolphin.
So let's like a dolphin.
I love
All
the
right.
slow burn laugh.
All right. So, speaking of laughs, classic television pitch.
Yeah.
Breeze leading us off.
You know, to be honest, I don't know if you saw this today, but there was a pretty hot take on Twitter about classic TV.
I saw the one about the
older
the
male
showrunner. Yes, yeah. The older male being about my age. Yeah, about my age. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like in any educational system, they're going to try to say, like, hey, here's the history, blah, 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 blah. And I think that there is certainly, I hate to say kind of like secret code words. Like, I always talked about, I loved education as a little kid because I could win Scrabble and I could win crossword puzzles, but it's all kind of like this, literally and figuratively a game theory, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm kind of playing on what a bunch of old white guys decided was the classics and humanities and arts and literature, and kind of growing up in that culture, you know, it was really easy for me to win that game. So I feel like it's kind of the same type of thing. It's like there's not a lot of television history. I know that there was a class that was taught at Ohio State that was criticizing television. Mm-hmm. So I know there's stuff out there, but essentially this guy was talking about I want somebody to really understand where TV came from, the history of TV, all the shows that came up from it, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I think people were just kind of arguing both sides. Some people were yeah, no, I think that's important, but a lot of other people were really kind of arguing but I want to do something different. I want to do something new, and I'm aware of these things, but they didn't represent me, and so it's really hard for you to tell me go back and buy this box series and watch all of it so that I can communicate with you. Whereas I don't know. I was it was not a particularly kind phrasing, which I feel if somebody wanted to say hey, look, you don't have to watch every single episode of I Love Lucy, just know it exists. You know, I'd love to talk with you about the innovator that, Lucy and Desi were to TV and blah, 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 whatever. But
yeah, I think that the cap for it, as far as I saw, was he basically tagged his entire argument after yelling about young people today don't know any of the old TV shows or anything. He kind of capped the whole thing by saying, so just so you know, if we're in a writer's room and I say Felix Unger or Archie Bunker, and hey, hi Puma Man, Puma Man. All right, from Twitter, follows me on Twitter. Hi,
Yay.
thanks for joining us. But he basically was if I say Felix Unger or I say Archie Bunker, and you look at me with a blank expression, you're fired. And I think that threw a lot of people off because it's well, you're not even at that point offering advice to help shepherd people through or anything like that. You're gatekeeping. You're saying.
Yeah, I feel it might have been a much more warmly received. It's well, if you can go see episode blah, 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 blah of Mary Tyler Moore Show or Dick Van Dyke or whatever, and just say, there are some very common tropes in television that even to fight against a trope, you're going to have to know what that trope is.
Yeah.
I feel there would be kinder, more wholesome mentoringship opportunities available if it wasn't presented as my experience is canon or my experience is law. And so I feel coming from classic TV today is a little bit tinged by kind of reading that one. Well, but I feel when we were kind of deciding what we were going to
Yeah.
do, my goodness, were there some good theme songs back in the day. And, you know, we are a musical theater QuaranStream.
Yeah.
And so I kind of picked theme songs I liked.
Mhm.
And we'll go from there, right?
Oh, right.
And that leaves up a lot of freedom. And I think that I would definitely encourage, like, you know, we don't necessarily have to do, like, casting. Like, I think kind of in contrast to that is they just announced the All Black Golden Girls reboot.
Yeah.
Which I think is, like, fun and exciting. And something
Yeah.
like, you know, I love the writing of the Golden Girls. I almost don't really care who plays them. Like, I think it would be really fun to see just another iteration of it. So,
Yeah. Well, we have a tendency to think of, in the modern day, to think of the person we saw play this in film or in television is the only person who could play that role. And actually, there's a lot of opportunity there. And yes, Puma Man just reminded me, also follows me on Facebook and Instagram. So, and I follow him on all of those platforms too. So, but yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to revisit these roles with new actors, see how good they are. I just want to throw out really quickly too about the controversy you just mentioned on Twitter. Another thing is apparently at one point this guy got a question asked to him on Twitter of, well, if younger people don't know all of these shows, why don't you just hire older people like you? And his response was basically, well, because I have to pay them more.
yeah.
So I think if
Experience does...
yeah, I think if you say that, you're kind of inviting a lot of
Well, and I feel like, you know, I've taught college for a really long time, and that's what I really like. I mean, like, honestly, I feel like as an older person, I like having younger people with ideas, or
Yeah.
at least younger people who, like, let's just be honest, like, we're middle-aged, like, we're a little bit jaded, and if somebody comes up with a solution to a problem, like, I don't like to say, well, I don't think you can solve it that way. I like to say, I'd love to see you try.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's exciting. Like, you know, go for it. If you think you can do it, I support it.
Yes.
So I don't know. I feel like if you don't want to work with younger colleagues, like, you're kind of SOL, because that's all we got coming up the pipe, guys. Like, there isn't older people coming up. I mean, we've tried to career change. It's hard.
Yeah. But talking about great theme songs.
Yeah.
I think you picked one of the best, honestly.
Come and knock on our door. We are waiting for you. Where the kisses are hers and hers and his. There's company too. All right. Yeah, as a little kid, when I was little, one of my favorite things that my parents gave me, this sounds so weird. I'm a weird kid. It's fine. I mean, like, I majored in theater. It's fine.
Yeah.
I got a tape recorder.
Mhm.
And I love tape recording me some TV theme songs. I love making up little songs to TV theme songs. Like, I just totally remember, like, okay, Dallas and MASH, and of course, like, Murder, She Wrote, Golden Girls. Like, there's just, like, a whole bunch right there at the early 80s. And I just totally remember, like, the Dallas theme song. I'm like, I am going outside and I am getting the mail. That was my jam. And I had a little tape recorder of all this stuff. I don't know if my parents have it anywhere. It's probably been written over or trashed or something. But this was very precious to me, clearly from, like, you know, the ages of, like, 4 to 6.
Yeah.
And Three's Company was, like, a show I watched a lot of TV I probably didn't understand, but, you know, bright colors and it's fun, and, you know, I remember that. I remember Golden Girls, which is, I think, my other choice.
Yeah.
There's just a few TV shows that I think all of us as little kids just ended up watching because our parents watched it or our grandparents watched it. And we were in the room, and it seemed like it was funny. We had a good time.
Yes.
And then you kind of, like, rewatch it when you're older and, like, oh, no.
My mom used to like to tell me the story. She says that when I was young, I would run to the television to watch Bewitched. And I pretty much thought that the cartoon for the opening sequence was the entire show. Once that was finished, I, like, walked away from the TV. Yeah, but I really loved that, like, 30-second show, Bewitched.
And I think, like, you know, we had Nick at Night when we were kind of, like, in elementary school, middle school. So I feel like there was, like, a lot of opportunity to see things like the Andy Griffith Show and I Love Lucy and just like stuff that like we really, you know, like I mean, to be honest, we all really enjoyed.
Make Room for Daddy. That's a show that, you know, I kind of wonder if the guy who was complaining about these younger writers don't know any old television, I kind of wanted to be like, what do you think about Make Room for Daddy? Do you know that one? Is that part of your television? Because you're mentioning Mary Tyler Moore Show and Dick Van Dyke Show. Make Room for Daddy at one point was the biggest show on television.
But I also kind of like pulled up the Wikipedia entry because like I have not watched the show in a long time, but I do know the basic gist of it, right?
Yes.
So John Ritter plays, oh gosh, what's his name? Jack. You're gonna
Tripper.
Jack Tripper. I was like, Glenn is gonna think of it before I look it up. He is this young single bachelor. He has like a best friend that comes over. Like I think it's Larry something. I don't know. This is a horrible pitch. Just prejudge. I mean, I still think it's a good idea, right? It's like, I think that playing off of all of our middle-aged nostalgia, I think kind of like re-examining a lot of these weird, like, gay tropes and, you know, stuff like that. Like, I just feel like it's kind of due for a little bit of a revamp. I think that, you know, we kind of all enjoy a little bit of camp.
Yeah.
And I think, like, to be honest, like, the last time I thought of Three's Company was, so I was in a sorority when I was in college. This isn't a brag, it's just the truth. I just heard, because, like, being a theater major and being in a sorority are really hard. Like, really hard. Really hard and really expensive. So I was in a sorority for, like, a year. My illustrious career. But, you know, like, I still keep in touch with my sorority sisters, and I still really enjoy everybody, and I'm, like, really happy I did it, and I wish I could have stuck longer with it, but unfortunately, like, when you go into theater, like, your evenings are kind of, like, eaten up by rehearsals and shows, and that's when chapter meetings are, and so I kind of had to make a decision, and sorority was getting expensive, but I really liked it. I liked the philanthropy, I liked the sisterhood, I liked the parties, you know, all that stuff was fun. But I kind of had to, like, make a decision, and I was like, oh, my career is probably going to be in theater, not being in a sorority, so I should probably do that.
I don't know what career there is that the career is being in a sorority.
Management.
Oh, okay.
Like, I mean, honestly, like...
You can tell I was not in Greek life at all.
Yeah, it's like that community fundraising stuff, you know, like being kind of an organizer.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was like, I mean, a lot of them are, like, teachers.
All right.
So, really, I mean, Chi Omega, yay. But anyway, Joyce DeWitt, who was on the show, she was a Chi Omega. And that was, like, really, like, big deal for me. So I was really excited. I don't know how she did it. I was like, she maybe didn't major in theater, or maybe things were, like, more lax or whatever, but it was rough. So I did it for, like, a year and a half, and I was like,
So now you mentioned revisiting some of these older gay tropes and everything, and that's a big part of this show that was kind of scandalous when it first came out, was because the idea is Jack Tripper
is a straight guy.
Yes, straight guy, you know, healthy, red-blooded American male who needs a place to live, and there's a room in this apartment that's shared by Joyce DeWitt and Suzanne Summers. And basically, in order to get the landlords to let him move in there, he pretends to be gay.
Yes.
So, which
is like, you know, to be honest, pretty outdated. But I think that, you know, with clever writers and having kind of a diverse writing room, like, it would be really clever.
So first question is, are you doing it as a period piece, or are you trying to find a way to update that for the modern day?
I think it just kind of depends on the direction that you want to go in. I mean, to be honest, I'm always a little bit leaning towards updating it. But I could also really see, like, you know, there is a big nostalgia. Like, granted, I mean, you can't see much of this room, but it is mostly brown. So we have mastered the 60s aesthetic to, you know, 75% of this room at this point.
We tried to get them to put a conversation pit in the living room. Nothing doing.
Yeah, they won't really let us dig into the apartment underneath us. But I mean, I have a lot of like my parents' old furniture, a lot of my parents' old pictures. I mean, I always think of Co-op the musical, where she's singing about her dream apartment, and she wants macrame and like erotic, tasteful erotic art, and a lot of like brown, brown pieces of herringbone furniture. And I think that's kind of like what we've accidentally stumbled into, but it's like not horrible. Like we like it.
Yeah, I always tell people I used to work at a furniture store, a big box furniture store, and as part of my training, they sent me through like a training course on aesthetics to be able to talk to customers about the furniture that we stock. Even though I wasn't sales, I was supposed to be in the back room, like building the furniture. And I think I said, when they asked us to describe our aesthetic, I said, somewhere in the neighborhood of Mary Richards' apartment in the Mary Tyler Moore Show, or John Steed's flat in The Avengers. And just everybody in the room was instantly like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like, I'm not really one to take the nostalgia route if I was rating it, but I think it's also because, like, it ran from 1977 to 1984, so it kind of, like, stopped making new episodes when I was 3. So that's not necessarily, like, a time period that I think I can kind of speak to. Like, more so I think when I talk about Golden Girls, like, next time, like, I can probably see that a little bit more. But this, I feel like I would almost want, like, the team from Pose to, like, redo it, right? Okay. I think that would be really fun, and I think that there's still, like, a lot of, like, really interesting things about sex and gender that people seem confused by and not open to, and so I still feel like there's, like, a big hurdle that we kind of have to, like, jump into, like, acceptance, and I feel like that was kind of the whole thing about the original, is, like, men and women can be friends. Yeah. Which was really kind of, like, no, in the 70s, like, if you're flirting with a lady, like, I mean, that's it. Like, you can't be friends. I mean, it happens, of course, but it's like, I just feel like it was, like, something got really weird in the 70s and 80s about that.
Well, and there was, I have not watched a ton of Three's Company in my life, but there was always something very interesting to me about it, that it was a storyline that traditionally would have been a love triangle. Like the two female roommates and the one guy, and who's he going to wind up with and everything. And there was flirting and everything like that. There was definitely lots of, like, risque humor and things. But at no point did it really feel like, oh, there's a competition here for... Yeah. Which, no...
I'd agree.
Nobody was, like, team...
left out or...
Yeah.
Now, I was like, the other thing that I think, like, really hasn't changed all that much, of course, we're going to talk about feminist issues, is, I think, like, Suzanne Summers was always, like, trying to be smart, or trying to be thin, or trying to be pretty, and, like, that's still a concern women face. Yeah. And Joyce DeWitt was always, like, worried about her career, and, it's like, I felt like they did try to tackle some issues, but there was still kind of this binary of, like, brown-haired smart girl and blonde-haired dumb girl. Like, we talked about this the other day of, like, what were the last acceptable, like, I mean, there's always, let's be honest, there's always acceptable white people jokes. Yes. It's like, tell all the white people jokes you want. But it's like, I remember, like, as a little kid, like, blonde jokes and, like, Polish jokes were still very, like, very, very common. Because we talk a lot about, like, all of the weird racial stuff that's happened in America, that there still finds way to divide people through humor.
Yeah, I've talked before, I used to do stand-up, and one of my bits in stand-up was, I would say, right now in England, there's a bunch of people who are trying to ban the Welsh language, just outright. Don't speak it in public, don't have it on signs or anything. And I'm like, that's white people being racist against white people for being a different kind of white person. That is when racism eats its own head.
Yeah, I think my favorite joke was, we were talking about the Renaissance Fair.
Yeah, I would talk about Renaissance fairs, and I would say, I love Renaissance fairs because I just imagine the conversation that had to go into it. It's like, say, Roy, what's that thing that we do with other cultures, where we fetishize the women and emasculate the men while wearing the clothes and singing the songs. Cultural appropriation, that's it. Why haven't we ever done that to ourselves? Hear me out here. Like, I know that you love it when I sing Danny Boy, but what if I sang Danny Boy while wearing a kilt and a busty wench in a bustier shoved a ferret up it right at the high note? Doesn't that sound like ripping good fun?
And then we talked about all the different characters we would play at a Renaissance fair. And this took a good 20 minutes.
Yes.
So now we're way off track. Which is normally what happens on these streams. But we appreciate you guys for sticking with us.
Yes.
But for me, like I said, I think I would love to see kind of an updated thing of it. I think that there would be, even if it's like an homage, maybe. I think, of course, like, I love the theme song. That's kind of like where I kind of like come into it. But I also feel like, maybe a little bit of like, I don't know, ukulele in there.
Yeah.
Some Me and My Girl type of like, dance hall type of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, I feel like there's a lot of room for kind of interpretation. And to be honest, like, with the success of Mamma Mia, I mean, you could go very 70s, to be honest.
Well, and let me throw two things at you that I think would be fascinating to put into the show, or work well to put in the show. First off is the fact that you have Jack Tripper is played by John Ritter, who was one of the true masters of physical comedy. So I think
he died so young. He's so talented.
Yes.
I'm glad that his son does stuff, but that was like, I remember him and like Jim Henson when I was little were like big blows.
But such a master of physical comedy. So I think you have an opportunity for a lot of slapstick and farce in this, and I think that would be a good thing to include, because I feel like that's as much a part of the character as anything else. I even feel like the name Jack Tripper. Yeah. It's sort of setting him up to be... Well,
and of course, like, already at the tender age of 3 and 4, I was still always playing moms in theater productions. This sounds really bad, but I was always like, and you're going to be Goldilocks' mother. And I'm like 4 with the wooden spoon, like, all right.
Well, and the other thing I would say is, I feel like we've discussed this a lot, that there are a lot of shows that would honestly be improved by the romantic polyhedron, whatever it is, shaped like triangle in this case, being resolved with, a polyamorous group, as opposed to one person gets left behind and another, And I feel like this would be an ideal show for that, either for that, or for a show of hey, we're flirty and we're risque with each other, but in the end of the day, we're just good friends. We're all good friends who have this relationship. We can speak to each other like this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so much character in this. Like I said, like, I love the Ropers. I think that they're like one of the most fun pieces of the show. It's definitely the part that I would see, like, I would be Mrs. Roper, right? So I like that. I think that it kind of has like kind of those broad strokes of comedy that you don't really see in a lot of modern comedy, because comedy's played very like close and tight. HD, there's not room for broadness.
Right.
We watched One Man, Two Governors.
Yes.
Which I think would be kind of a good inspiration. And then I was part of an All's Well That Ends Well production that took place in like the 1960s, 1970s, which I think is kind of similar feeling to this. If you're not familiar with All's Well Ends Well, it is a problem play from Shakespeare, so it doesn't necessarily read true comedy, but it does have a lot of the, bed switcheroo stuff, which is why kind of the 60s and 70s was kind of inspired by it, where it's like, ooh, who am I sleeping with? Is it this person? Is it this person?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of also lends itself to stuff like Three's Company.
And I think that it's an interesting show to play with friendship and romantic dynamics. I think that it is... I definitely want it to be Suzanne Summers' character as opposed to the characters who replaced her in later seasons, which to me that was always like the really tragic behind-the-scenes story on this show, was that Summers had an agent who was like, no, you're destined for better things. And we'll get money out of the network because you're a big part of the success of this show. And you've got an ironclad contract. They're not going to just fire you. And she wound up on a little soundstage with a bare-bones crew filming like 10-second scenes, like having 3 lines an episode for the end of every episode and until her contract ran out. And so, I feel like if you're going to do it, you got to do that. Let's call them the canonical trio. The trio everybody thinks of when they think of Three's Company. And I think the Ropers are a good choice. Because as much as I love Don Knotts, I think the older couple dynamic is good for the landlord.
And love a good caftan.
Yes.
And turban.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, okay, I just want to write things I can be in, right? That's the whole thing about a character actress, is you're like, I'm not going to be the ingenue, I got to go be this broad over here.
Yeah. Hey, it's a model of theater that has worked for generations upon generations.
Yeah, but I was like, I feel like I'm not like the Laurence Olivier that's like, I can play Hamlet at 60. I'm like, all right, what old broad can I play that's like, has 3 lines, and I come in, yep, I'm the executive producer, bye!
I think one of my favorite, like, historical instances of that was there was one Restoration era actor who rewrote The Tempest to be all about Caliban because that was the role he wanted to play. So it's like Prospero, all of the other main characters of The Tempest become bit characters, and it's the Caliban show.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know why, I mean, like, I love doing lead roles, like, don't get me wrong, like, I can memorize stuff, and I just want to play a lot of different characters, but I feel like I've always been cast in and maybe excelled, like, bring her on 3/4 of the way throughout the show, have her do something ridiculous, that's it. Which it's fine, like, I mean, it just means a lot of time is spent backstage knitting.
Yeah.
But I can wear a goofy costume, I can speak in obnoxious accents, I can sing poorly or do something weird. But I mean, like, honestly, I think, like, the majority of, like, my high school and college theater was bring her on 3/4 of the way where things are getting boring. Then everybody would be like, oh, and then they'll stick around for the end.
Yeah, I've played a lot of Shakespeare priests in my time, which is you have 2 scenes, but you have a lot of lines during those scenes.
Yep, true.
All right, so yeah, I think Three's Company, solid idea for a show. I think you have to have the sound be the sound of that theme song. Yeah. So I think very, very poppy, very latter days Burt Bacharach, I would think.
I would be really open to, like, you know how we kind of talked about SpongeBob the Musical had a whole bunch of different people brought on to get a gist of it. Like, I've talked about this before, but the guy who wrote Wait in the Wings version of it, like what went right with SpongeBob, he talked about Vice, not Vice. For when Miami Vice was, like, scouting locations or looking for stuff, they would say that was Vice or not Vice, and it's kind of feeling, right? And so that's how they kind of, like, picked out the SpongeBob stuff. Was it SpongeBob, not SpongeBob? Like, it had to have a feeling to it, but not be an exact replica. And I kind of feel the same way about this, where it's like, I don't necessarily care if it's a faithful adaptation or an exact replica, but I feel like you can do, like, Tiki Bar. Ooh, yeah, that's Three's Company.
I could see, and I could see inviting different artists to be like, give us your take on Three's Company on it. Like, I would love to hear the song that Fits in the Tantrums would come up with for Three's Company. So, that could be a fun one. Bruno Mars, I bet, would do a great Three's Company song. Yeah.
Well, now it just got me really sad because Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings.
Oh,
we miss Sharon Jones.
Yes.
We love her.
But yeah, I think, not a traditional pitch for a show. But when do we ever do a traditional pitch for a show here?
We've bit off the rails since April.
Yes. But I think a great idea for a show, and one that I would like to see experimented with and played with a bit.
Yeah, I feel like my shows have turned less into, like, here's my elevator pitch. Like, they started real strong in the beginning, but now it's just like, I want to see the show. Like, I mean, I'll eventually have to write it, because I don't know if anybody's, like, out there chomping at the bit, but if you are, tweet at me. Please let me know if you wrote this. But it just turns into things that I think that I would like to see, things that I would pay for, so.
Yeah. All right, so...
Would you tweet at us?
Yes, we've got the names are right there. You can tweet at us and let us know. You can comment on YouTube. If you're live in the chat room, you can pop into the chat room and let us know.
Well, we're right about the end of our show.
Yeah. And let's see now. So we're going to continue on with classical TV for the next episode and next week.
Yep, we do everything about 2 weeks.
Yes.
So if you feel like you've missed this week or you want to catch next week, I normally pitch on Mondays. Glenn normally pitches on Wednesdays, and we try to keep a theme.
Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Labor Day has thrown me off! And then we do it for about 2 weeks so that we can each have a shot at, like, 2 different opportunities to kind of talk about things we enjoy.
So we just did Three's Company with Bree. And yes, Bristol is live in the chat room. Look there. We just did Three's Company with Bree. This coming Saturday, you can tune in at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and you can hear my pitch for a musical based on the classic sitcom that I grew up watching and loving, A Different World.
I'm really excited about this one.
This is going to be fun.
I really begged him to do this because he came up with it offhanded in a trip driving me to the office, a little commute, and I was like, this is so good. Like, literally, I want to see this now. Like, there are, like, 2 things that Glenn has talked about that I wish existed so I could talk with other people about what a big fan I am with it. This is one.
Yeah.
And then the other one is he has a mystery novels, like detective, whatever novels, that I love so much. And there's this whole, like, Wikipedia entry about how everything is kind of connected in my mind, and I can't wait until it's out in the world so I can talk to other people how much I love it.
and then let's see, next week, if I remember correctly, on Wednesday you will be pitching The Golden Girls.
Yay! Yes.
The musical.
Of course.
And then I will be finishing out our classic TV pitches, if I remember correctly, with a musical based on Night Court.
Which sounds really good.
So, okay. Harry Anderson. Okay, I've brought us down enough time to a single stream.
Goodbye!
Well, love you guys. It was wonderful hanging out with you. Puma Man, thank you for following us and for showing up today to chat with us and be part of the stream. You guys stay safe out there. If you're in a fire-prone area, watch for evacuation notices. Otherwise, well, and in addition to that, wear masks, social distance, do what it takes to stay safe and healthy. All right?
Love you.
And good night. Take care of yourselves out there, because you know we're not there to take care of you. Right? Bye. Oh no, I didn't have the right scene queued up. Oh no. Oh no, I have to keep waving. All right, there we go.